Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. We've been off a couple weeks, and I'm glad you're joining us. We are filming this live, and for those of you joining us live, we appreciate you. And for those of you that are watching listening to the podcast or watching the YouTube, we appreciate you too. Thanks for spending part of your precious A&T with us, your attention and time. Shout out to a couple of our sponsors, Lightheart Sanders, CPA firm. They've been a great sponsor of this forum. Thanks to them. And also Zenoti, a relatively recent sponsor. Shout out to them too for the good work that they're doing. Today, we are going to get into the subject of marketing. And marketing is not necessarily a subject that is in my wheelhouse. So we do have a special guest that it is in his wheelhouse. So very shortly, I will be bringing to the conversation Ameet Kallarackal, who is a principal with the company Glammatic. Let me give you a little bit of a setup. So Ameet was recently a guest on one of our function forums. We do function forums scheduled throughout the year. They're hosted by Heath Smith, and we work through the different functions, including operations, education, human capital, and then marketing. And Ameet was recently Heath Smith's guest, and it was a little bit, it was much more of a deeper dive than what we'll get into today. So today, Ameet and I will cover top line, several key marketing things. We'll also cover some things that were not covered in the function forum. With that, Ameet, why don't I bring you forward? Let's get you on the screen here. Good morning. How are you today?
Tom, good to see you. Doing well.
And we're finding you in Boston, which is where you live. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, did you get married this spring?
I got engaged, yeah, about 2 months ago now on the date.
Okay, so you got engaged. You're not married yet. Well, she said yes is our assumption.
She said we. She's French, so
Better yet. Well, congratulations to
thank
that.
you very much.
I think that was the reason we didn't get to see it the Philly this year. Otherwise, it's really nice to spend time with you in person. And I've had that privilege, and I'm excited that we're able to share with our guests a little bit about you and the work that you do, and very importantly, the marketing insights that you have. So you have a company called Glammatic, and in a nutshell, would you describe what Glammatic does?
Yeah, our focus at Glammatic, we describe our tagline as growth on autopilot for salons. And so our real goal that we really focus on as a North Star is how do we bring new clients through the door to salons. We work with really fantastic quality salons that do deliver a phenomenal experience in salon. And our goal is really to help with how do we bring new people into that salon to get exposure to that brand and to do it on autopilot where there's little to no effort required by the salon owner or team or front desk. And so our focus to making that happen is on the web and social and Google and all of the sort of online channels that have become the primary way that new clients discover salons. And so we found a lot of nifty ways to make sure that our salons are performing the best by automating practices there, taking over management of those tools, and these days leveraging a lot of AI.
So hot off the press, and a full year of rigorous research had to do with a study on profitability. And it just got released in June of 2025. And it is an unprecedented recent look at salon profitability. I've talked about it many times in this forum. And in here specifically, I want to get to a section that relates to marketing. And we have a finding from the study, and we found that marketing spend varied widely. Top performing salons tend to invest strategically. And then we actually got to spend and found that the average salon was spending 1.5 points on marketing. We found the bottom performers were actually spending more, 1.9%. and the top performers were spending 0.9%. So it does take away, or does suggest that higher marketing spend didn't correlate with higher profitability. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's really interesting stat, and I would be very interested at the salon level to better understand the breakdown of where that spend is going. But I think very clearly spend is not equal to growth, and not all marketing spend is created equal. So I think there's also what we see is when you invest the right way on the marketing side. And especially if you're investing in organic growth where you get sustainable compounding benefits, the rich get richer here, where those that are showing up higher in search results, as an example, as long as they're delivering a good experience once clicked, are more likely to show up higher on search results because they're delivering a good user experience. And without spending extra on something like ads, you can still get the benefits that are recurring benefits over time, and that makes it more profitable. So I think a lot of times, when people are looking to spend on marketing to boost in a short term period, they might spend on something like ads or maybe print. And I mean, we actually don't do paid ads ourselves. We've done it here and there, and occasionally we'll do it for accounts, but it's very difficult to have consistent benefits from paid ads unless you have a really high ticket service offering. So if you're a med spa, for example, or if you're doing extensions, for example, as your primary service, maybe you can have very targeted approach to ads that, even though it's higher cost, you get good profit from it. But generally what we see is, first of all, it's becoming more competitive. So your cost of an ad is going up to actually get a new customer from it. And also, you just have to keep iterating all the time and monitoring whether or not it makes sense to continue. So that is not necessarily the most profitable. And then if you just turn it off, it might just hurt immediately the value there. Plus, you're not necessarily bringing in the types of customers you want. So on the flip side, if you're investing in a steady, consistent way, then on organic growth, the benefits really do accrue and compound over time. The only other thing I'd mention there is the good news is the cost of building software and the cost of doing marketing is going down from a tech company perspective, right? We're seeing that firsthand. We can build way more software way faster using AI, and that should mean that the total percentage of spend doesn't need to continue to climb to get growth, as long as you're being smart about how you're spending that money.
Define organic search or organic traffic.
Oh yeah, great question. So for example, if you're searching on Google and you're searching for, there's actually two different ways to think about it. The first is what are sustainable mechanisms where you put something in place and you start to see benefits over time without having to manually update things over time. But then specifically organic search relates to searches that don't include the brand name. So if you're a salon, modern salon, let's say, and somebody's typing modern salon on Google and you're showing up, that's considered a branded search, and it's not necessarily organic because there's some really clear intent to find that specific salon. What we really focus on is for new clients that are still in the discovery phase, still figuring out which business they want to go visit and patron. They're going to search something that's location specific or service specific, but not brand specific. And generally, those are the types of things that are much more focused on. I mean, that's considered organic search. And so then the question is, how do you show up for those types of searches? And if you can, then you're in a much better position to get new customers. And then if you do a great job, with your web experience, for example, to remain at the top consistently. And that's a very sustainable practice for growth without spending extra every month.
You talked about website, and I was going to go there next, and talk about the relative importance of website relative to the other online presence that we might have.
Yeah, so I mean, we're generally monitoring because our focus is growth. And it doesn't matter to me what way growth happens, but we should always be looking at, well, what is today the way that most growth is being driven? And historically, especially in the last, 5, 10 years, Google has been the primary way that people are searching and discovering for new businesses. And one thing that we've been really paying attention to right now is these AI tools, right? These large language model searches like ChatGPT and Claude that more and more people are using. And I mean, the reality is the average search volume, 27% of that is now concentrated in these new, ChatGPT and other tools. So that's a huge change. Google was always the by far the, 90+% of market share for search, and that is changing every day. And so that's a really interesting thing to keep in mind. And so for us, we think about, well, how do we make sure that our salons are showing up, on those searches as well, if that's going to be more of a trend. However, when we look at the data so far, from Q2 versus Q1, or even this past quarter versus the year before, there's a marginal increase still in web traffic that's coming through Google, and bookings that are originating from Google. So that tells us that 27% search change on LLMs hasn't yet impacted the salon market directly. And I think the reason for that is generally when people are searching on these tools, it's more informational based questions, and it's less sort of intent transactional based questions, which Google is still primarily used for. And it could be Google Maps, it could be, just Google search. But when people are looking for a new salon or a new service provider, they're usually still using Google, and the data backs that. And so Google is still representing about over 70% of what we're seeing as driving new clients. Instagram is a part of that journey. It's not necessarily where it's originating, but a lot of times people will go to Instagram as part of their process of deciding, is this a business they want to patron? It's really difficult to pull apart exactly how much of it starts with Instagram. Their analytics don't give us as much, insight as Google does. But yeah, Google is still a huge source. And then, where is Google's algorithm pulling data from? A lot of that is the website. And where does the Google search lead to? A lot of that is the website as part of that decision-making process. So we're still seeing, on average for our salons, about 1,400 monthly, new visitors. And that's slightly up from the prior quarter and the prior year. And a lot of that is converting into actual bookings for new clients. So pretty significant opportunity that lives via the website still.
So I want to unpack this a little bit more. So then my question about the website is, so back to the website. So the traffic ultimately is going to take you to the website, right?
Correct.
So however so it does put a spotlight on the website as still being fundamentally important. And is that really the mothership of where your information should live in this central repository?
Yes, it is. That and the Google Business Profile are, I would say, the two primary places that information should live. The Google Business Profile is important. That's where the reviews live. There's only so much that you can do, to make that full and complete. But then you can do more things to keep it active, like replying to reviews or adding photos and posts. And Google pays attention to that. It's their own product to capture, the snapshot of information for a business. So keeping that up to date does send good signal to them. And of course, from a user behavior perspective, people are often looking at Google Maps, looking at the reviews before they're going into the website. So the Google Business Profile is essential to have right. But the reason the website's so important for salons, one, that's the space that you can actually add a lot of content. And from a Google search perspective, to even show up high in Google Maps, Google's looking at keywords and a lot of other factors too. But a lot of that relies on the website data to feed that algorithm. So, you only have so much space in a Google Business Profile to add content. You only have so much space in an Instagram profile to add content. Google's actually just, as of last week, they're starting to scrape Instagram content as well, captions and bio as part of the SEO sort of Google search algorithm. So that is interesting. But most of that content can live on the website. So that's one reason the website's so important, is it actually helps even show up on Google searches. And then the other reason it's so important is for a salon, and this is actually different from, let's say, a restaurant, where, when you're looking for a restaurant or cafe, you care primarily about the product that you're purchasing. And with a salon, you really care about the experience that you're getting and the people that you're getting that service from. And so we actually come from the restaurant industry. Before we, worked on
Yeah.
Glammatic, that's what we were doing. And so we actually still have a lot of restaurants that we can compare the data to, and it's fascinating the things that are similar and different. But yeah, we're seeing, website data on the restaurant side go down, even with the same underlying technology, whereas salon traffic goes up because people are now, and you want this as a salon, you want people to choose you based on the experience you're delivering, and they're vetting that experience based on your website, and Instagram to some extent, right? And so this is the opportunity to deliver your brand, to showcase your team, to talk in more detail about why you are the way you are in your history, because people are making a long-term commitment when they're making that decision often, or they want to. So I find that to be really interesting. And that's the other reason the website is so important.
Yeah, I did pull that out of your dialogue with Heath in the function forum. You went into that a little bit deeper about restaurants versus salons. In a restaurant, it's not so driven by the people, it's driven by the food.
Exactly.
And you could use a lot of still photography, and you don't have to lean into the people, and all it takes for people to get ready to be on camera, you know? So spend a quick
Exactly.
minute on that. And yeah.
Yeah, I wish it was easier because we do social as an offering. And I really wish, and photography is such a critical part of, the expression of brand and building that relationship and showcasing the experience for a salon. I really wish it was easier to capture photography for a salon because it would make our job way easier. But it's not, because yeah, with food, you really just need to see the food and know the price, and you're like, okay, this looks good. Let me go to this place. But yeah, with the salon, it's not so simple. And this is the beauty industry where people care a lot about what they're wearing, and they care a lot about how they look if they're on camera, but the customers and the staff, especially the staff. And so you can't just batch a photographer coming in and taking a ton of content for the next 3 months or 6 months necessarily. At least the perception is that you can't. And so that makes it a little bit more complicated, but the value of photography is abundantly clear. I mean, we see it when you have professional photos on a website versus you don't. It really does lead to more time on page and more conversion. And so, these are things that matter a lot. And it is also more complicated, especially with social, when you need new content all the time. And it takes time to produce that type of content.
So when you come in and take on a new salon client, oftentimes you're dealing with an existing website,
Correct.
because you're coming into many cases mature business. What are some of the maybe sins, one, two, or three sins that you see, or phrase it however you want, concerns, issues, whatever. Give me like one, two, or three things on websites that just you immediately say, okay, that's got to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Almost all of our customers had a prior website before working with us. And that's great. I mean, it actually gives us a starting point for content. And in almost every single situation, there is very clear low-hanging fruit for us to attack and deliver pretty meaningful results quickly afterwards. And there's plenty that I can point to. So, one example is the mobile experience. I think this is really the most important. And I talk about this with Heath in the Function Forums session, but it's over 70% of website traffic consistently on every single one of these salon websites that we manage. Every single one, over 70% of that website traffic is coming from mobile. And so I think people don't think about that as much, especially if they're building their own site ahead of time, or they're working with an agency to get that built. They're usually looking at it from their desktop or their computer. And it's not that that doesn't matter. Like, that's still 30% of traffic. That still is important, but it matters a lot less than the mobile experience. And not only that, but the user has less attention on mobile. So there's actually higher stakes and higher standards and expectations that a user has on the phone, because it's actually, they're trained to have very low attention spans when they're doing things on mobile. We all are, psychologically, and it's so much easier to click back and go to the next experience. So if the mobile experience of the website and the booking experience is not user friendly, then you're way more likely to lose customers along the way. The metrics that we care most about when we take over are: how much total traffic are we driving to this site, and how much of that traffic is converting. And the conversion aspect is what matters in this case. With a bad mobile experience, you just drop off a lot of customers. I mean, we see sometimes 10 to 20% of web traffic converting in these really bad mobile cases, which is terrible. I mean, ours on average is about 40%. And
Hmm.
so, there's a huge uplift that you can get from just having a better experience um and making sure, booking is very easy to do from the mobile side. So that's number one. Number two, I'd say that we see consistently is the service menu is really underutilized on web. So, the worst case of this is you just have a picture of the service listing on the website. And then the average case is you list the service item names, maybe the price, but no additional information. Now, why is this? Why is this a sin? Well, Google is scraping all of the information from your website and your Google business profile and right your Instagram now. And like we were talking about earlier, a big advantage of a website is that you can fill a lot of really useful content for Google to scrape. And the two primary things that Google is looking for, or sorry, that users are searching for on Google are location and service. And so, your service menu is a really great opportunity to fill high value keywords that people are likely to search for. And so, we really recommend not only having service descriptions for every single service item, but even having separate pages for different service items just to give more content for Google to fill and to scrape. And that can make a big difference in, how you show up on Google, where you show up on Google over time. It takes time for these things to factor in. So I'd say that's number two. And then a third is we were just talking about photography, but I'd say the broader just brand consistency is maybe a really critical thing. I mean, often we're seeing, fonts, 5 different fonts that are used on a website, or even font sizes. It might be the same actual font, but the sizes of these fonts are really inconsistent across the site. And same thing with color palette. Often you don't really have a very consistent theme of color that's being applied. And this stuff is complicated. It's not very easy to get right, but just sticking with, 1 or 2 colors that are very legible and 1 or 2 sizes, one for the headers, one for the body text. And then just making sure that everywhere on the site that is consistently applied goes a tremendous way for professionalism. And that's what people need to have. They need to deliver a professional experience because we're talking about the look and feel that a user is trying to trust this business with. And if they don't get that impression when they're first exposed to the business, which is on their website, it's online, then it's much more difficult to convince that person to use them and to trust them with their look and feel. It's a weird kind of, psychological leap, but it is what happens. This is your first impression of the brand. So good quality photos, have that impact, but also just sticking with, consistent branding. It doesn't have to be the best branding in the world, right? You don't have to spend thousands of dollars picking your fonts and colors. As long as you're doing those things consistently and having good photos, that can already, I think, separate, good from great. So those would be 3.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. So we will soon be publishing, no one knows this yet, but we will soon be publishing a quarterly insights report, insights quarterly, actually. And we've invited you to submit some data because each quarter we want to provide not only a digest of things going on that's relevant to our audience, but also meaningful, timely, and relevant data. And we've invited you to submit some of that for marketing. Give us a idea comparing like the first quarter of this year compared to the second quarter of this year. I think you already went through a couple. I think you're seeing consistent mobile. I don't know if that changed much or it's still hovering. It was 70%, still is 70%. Any meaningful trends there?
Mobile has been relatively consistent. It's been around that 71, 72% on average.
Is there anything from the first to second quarter that you want to highlight? Maybe web traffic?
Yeah, web traffic. This was, we were really interested in seeing if the website traffic itself would change, and it has slightly increased. We thought it would decrease with all of the changes in the AI-based search, but it's slightly increased from Q1 to Q2 and year over year. So that was interesting. Not a huge dramatic shift. And this is based on our own customer base. And so there could be other reasons why that's growing. But yeah, on average, we're seeing, it was around 1,300, just over 1,300 to 1,400 on average per month. And this is maintaining similar size of business. So these are generally single location salons. And so that was really interesting. We're also taking a look at demographic shifts, specifically around age. And I mean, we know, for example, that the mobile traffic is primarily pulled up by younger audiences. And even Instagram, I think we're really wanting to monitor how that's shifting over time. Again, it's hard to tease apart the granular, like, why are people using Instagram, when in the customer journey are they using it. But it is true that 91% of Gen Z is active on Instagram, for example. And so as we're trying to attract a younger audience, both for hiring and for attracting new clientele, we're trying to figure out ways to really get more granular insights on the Instagram side. But generally we're seeing, yeah, mobile is a high percentage, and then website traffic has been increasing.
And that 1,300, 1,400, whatever it is that new traffic?
Yeah, those are unique users. So of that, the majority, about 60% plus, is new users. So yeah, I think a lot of existing users will go directly to a booking link, right? Or they'll have an existing relationship to be able to book. So that's why we see that being a little bit less. That's what you want too. You want most of the web traffic to come from new users. And it's specifically organically searched new users because they hadn't heard about the brand before. So yes, it's the majority of that is new.
We just had a question posed by Mr. Michael Shea from Seattle, who's up early today. He wants to know if you have information about schools.
We work with a couple schools, but it's only a couple, so there's not enough data to be significant.
All right. Are you interested in the school market? Is that something that's going to be a focus for you?
Um, I don't know. Maybe down the road. I mean, we'd love to. It's obviously such an important part of this industry, and a lot of salon owners are also owning schools, for example. So it makes a lot of sense. But the expertise we have is very much on driving new client and user behavior to salons, and so that'll probably remain our focus. We do get requests for it, but and so some cases we're willing to do that, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's our specialty, and so maybe down the road.
A lot of what you're talking about, though, to Michael's question, though, I think would apply to a school. We
Yes.
have a higher percent going mobile. We have, some of the things that you mentioned in terms of the sends. So a lot of this would definitely apply to schools. And okay, so we had that question. Let me see if I have anything else for you. Is there any other trends that you want to highlight? Or if not, we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the social, we've kind of touched on social, and I just think it's going to be something we need to continue to look at. The biggest thing, I sort of briefly mentioned this, but captions and bios are starting to be scraped by Google. So hashtags are no longer relevant on Instagram. That the Instagram CEO came out and said that. Hashtags are no longer being used for the Instagram search algorithm. So, that's something people can pull away from, but the captions are more important than ever. And so, because Google just announced that they're pulling in that content as part of their algorithm. So I would say, and even actually the reels are being put automatically in some cases as posts in Google Business. So I will say that the being more mindful of the captions and the keywords that are being used in the captions is a really useful thing to be taking advantage of right now.
What's a caption?
Oh, so when creating a social post, an Instagram post, usually you can write some text tied to the photo or video that you're posting, and that text that's being written is the caption.
Give me an example of a good caption.
So it really depends on what keywords you're targeting. And so you can do this. There's publicly available data. You can go to Google Search Console and look at, for a given website, what are people searching for when they're finding this business? You can look at what people are searching for your competition, generally in a given location, what beauty related search terms are happening. This is what we spend a lot of time on at the salon level. And so based on that, you can develop a really clear strategy for, all right, what are the words that are worth competing for, meaning adding to, content on your site, and what are words that that align with your services, your goals as a business, and then also there's real demand for. And then based on that, you can incorporate, let's say it turns out that a lot of people are searching for balayage in your area or a specific type of color service. You can now focus some of your Instagram content on that and making sure that you're referencing that, in the caption of some of those posts would be the specific example.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Ameet, thank you. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a while, and a couple of reasons why now. Number one is we have this data point from the study that really is looking at marketing spend and really encouraging people to look at that spend very carefully and managing their ROI, because more spend doesn't, throwing more dollars at it doesn't equate to profitability. And then the second sort of impetus was, as we get ready to start publishing some more industry data, I wanted to get just a sense of some of the marketing trends that you're seeing. This is really good stuff. It's going to be an area that's going to change a lot. So we'll make sure that we have you back as a guest. We're also making sure that we get some stuff, have you contribute more frequently in the hub as things come out. So let's everybody give Ameet a virtual round of applause. Thank you, Ameet. Appreciate you. And we will need your address, because you will get $1 million light bulb, as you will be a member of the Lightbulb Moments Brain Trust.
So special.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you
thanks
so much.
again.
No
So
problem.
thanks, Ameet, for being a great guest. A great conversation about marketing. Don't forget to check out the really full session with Heath and Ameet. That I think was 2 or 3 weeks ago. I didn't get to participate, but I listened to it, and it's excellent. I think marketing is so important and so underutilized. So check out that resource too. And then, as always, I want to re-thank our sponsors, Lightheart Sanders and Zenoti. And more importantly, or as importantly, excuse me, would be all of you that tune in, whether you're doing it live, podcast, or YouTube. So thank you very much. We look forward to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. Enjoy the rest of your day.